Hello. So, let's see. I just been watching Netflix. Uh, I've been watching my landlord's Netflix. When my landlord's asleep, like I go downstairs and like watch their Netflix because I rent a room. Um, but so that way I'm actually not giving money to that corporation, but I'm still like trying to get some entertainments. Um, so I watched She-Ra and He-Man, or what it there's some basically a He-Man one that was by Kevin Smith, and then I watched the Dark Crystal. So these are all like modern versions of these things by Netflix that are pretty good, like DreamWorks or like good graphics type stuff. So, for my high ass, like, eat some edibles and watch that. It's a good time. Um, and, and it was interesting to me how similar the theme was in these, because, in She-Ra, the theme was having to find like, the special sword and the magic sword. And then in the He-Man thing, it was the same. But in that one, it was like a sword that was broken in half, and they had to find the two halves of it, and um, and it would like protect the earth, and like all of these were about like powers inside the earth and inside the planet, and and then Dark Crystal was the same. That was also about getting two halves of a sword to unite into one sword that would save the planet, and about the magic power of the earth and stuff like that. So I don't know if these were all based on the same thing. I mean, I think that Dark Crystal is at least partly based on like, because I think the humanoid group in it is called the Gelfling. So that seems like it's from the Nordic, like, I think in the like, I'm pretty sure there's a Gelfling in Nordic mythology. Like that's the name of one of the major Nordic stories or whatever, the something of the Gelfling. Um, so and the sword, I think that can relate also to the sword and the stone. And the sword may actually be, I think like in Hamlet's Mill, it was saying that the sword and the stone might be like something in the sky, either, some constellation, or like the some part of the dark rift of the Milky Way or something like that. And so, like in the He-Man one, it was like half of the sword was in the underworld, or Subternia, they call it, and then the other half was in the world. And they mentioned how Subternia was basically hell, or, the underworld, the land of the dead, and that it shares a gateway with heaven. So that's interesting, because that is accurate, like from scripture, both Judeo-Christian scripture and from pagan, teachings. And of course, since hell is America, and heaven is just the sky, then yeah, obviously there is a shared, hell does have access to heaven just as much as the world does, Afro-Eurasia. So that was interesting. But I was just thinking about that, and how like, so much of modern fiction is based on ancient mythology, ancient religion, you know, the ancient tales of the gods. And 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 that's pretty openly known, you know, that like writers constantly tap into like ancient themes. I think most famously, George Lucas tapped into like, you know, the kind of archetypal monomyth of ancient culture through Joseph Campbell's writings, particularly A Hero with a Thousand Faces, or The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And so, you know, they're like using these archetypes from ancient mythology, ancient religion, and you know, you could probably find that just like really throughout, you know, especially fantasy stuff, but also a lot of, you know, sci-fi and just different stuff, and just pretty basic stuff. A lot of it has references to mythology. And so I was just thinking about what is the difference, you know, how does our relationship with this mythology relate to the original role of mythology, and the original relationship that people had with it. And something, it just struck me as kind of an ironic or just a strange inversion, the fact that in modern times we use these things as an escape, you know, and we have magic, and we have the gods, and we have the fairies and the elves and the nether worlds and stuff like that, and it's all like an escape, and it's all psychological. It's all something we use to distance ourselves from reality and go into this imaginary land, and you know, to get some respite from the rigors and pitfalls of reality. But in ancient times, it was arguably the exact opposite relationship, where the gods and the, you know, the mythology, the religion, like all these stories, the magic, were all mechanisms to cement one's own, or to cement people's connection with reality, you know, and which is not as possible nowadays, because nowadays the way it's sampled and re-rendered in modern you know, film and whatnot, is it's in a way that's like denuded of its original meaning and its original connection with reality. So, and that's fundamental to the self-identification of it in modern times. Like, it's pretty explicitly like imagination, you know, it's like the magic fairyland is like different from a real place, and fundamental to what it is, it can't be a real place, you know. That's so central to what it is. It's all like, it's not just that it happens to not be a real place, it's that like the place that it is the place that is not real. Like, that's so fundamental to its to the whole concept and experience. Whereas originally was quite the opposite. Like the netherworld meant America, and it was a very real place. And like they referred to like the Egyptians, they seem to have called Afro-Eurasia Osiris, or actually they called it basically Asia, or it was closer in pronunciation to Asia, but in modern English it's translated as Osiris. So it was their land. They knew it was land, but they portrayed it as a guy, as a being, and because they made it relatable. And then America they portrayed as Amentet Neferet, the beautiful West, who was personified as a goddess, and seems that Venus rising was personified as Isis, and Venus setting was personified as Nephthys. So they knew that these things were not really people, they were really what they are, but they symbolized them as people, as beings, as living beings, living gods, to make them more relatable and to make them, more memorable. So in general, like that, all these gods and all this religion, mythology, it was a way to, instead of nowadays, it's used just as a way to escape from reality. And often, people who are really into mythology are actually prejudiced against reality, and they kind of say, like, they thumb their nose at like logic and that, and they're like, they just prize imagination above everything. But the origins of this stuff is not really about imagination. I mean, it's imagination to formulate the symbols that represent the real things, but it's all based on science. It's like the stories of these gods, it's based on the very exact observations of the movements of the planets, the movements of the stars. So it's just a way to just completely immerse yourself in reality, in the universe, to say, not only am I going to study the universe, everything that I can study, the earth and all the visible stars and planets, but I'm going to render them as beings, as people, basically, like me, so that I can have a personal relationship with every planet and every star and every landmass. So it's really the opposite. Like all this mythology that was created to be a language that would enable people to become more intimately connected to reality. It's been hijacked and twisted into a way to escape from reality, and kind of almost a rebellion against reality. So it's I mean, maybe it's convenient. I feel like it's convenient for the powers that be, that like people don't really understand what ancient religion was about, because then we can keep thinking that all of our ancestors were dumb, and that we're being saved from an eternity of ignorance by the new technocrat job creators and whatever. And and it just, because also if you understand how advanced and scientific ancient religion was, then you also have to realize that all these different civilizations were super advanced, and many still are, like the Hindus and whereas a lot of modern people, like especially the power structure, they basically view that nobody was advanced until like the Industrial Revolution or something. Everybody before that was like basically ignorant monkeys, and like so yeah, there are a lot of real reasons why the truth is kept from people. But I could say in a way I enjoy both versions of this kind of mythology. But I would really love to really experience the original more, because like even as it is, it's hard to crack the code, really. It's hard to know all which gods are which planets and which land masses, and which stories relate to, what each story actually relates to in terms of the actual, motions of those planets. Like Thor is Jupiter, and Loki seems to be Saturn. Frigg, I guess, is Venus, and Odin is Mercury. So all the stories about those gods directly relate to the motions of those planets, but to decipher, in what exact way each story relates to reality, some of that will be hard to determine this, at this point, just because there's been so many generations since since these things were generally known. All right, I'm trying to get this glare out. I guess I'll just close that. There's no way. All right, I'll just go like this, I guess. Wow, it's still okay. Now it's like behind me. There's no way to escape this laptop screen. But anyway, I'll just close this stupid thing. Well, I guess that. Anyway. So yeah, I would really like to revive it, and to get more into piecing together all the dots and like, reformulate the original mythology as it was meant to be, and interpret it as it was meant to be interpreted. Because, like in certain pantheons, I got it pretty good, like the Nordic pantheon, the Latin pantheon, of course, the Greek pantheon. Those are all pretty easy to determine, because we still use the Roman, Latin names for the planets, and in the days of the week, they were translated into Germanic and Greek and some other languages. So all the languages that the days of the week were translated into, basically, tells us the names of those gods, or at least one name of each god in those languages. But, you know, like, I think, like, I kind of use the modern mythology in the way of the old mythology, since I know what a lot of it means. So even though in a way a lot of this stuff about like the going to the fairyland and the land of magic or something is supposed to be like an escape, some psychological thing to escape from reality, I use it to connect myself with reality, because I know that fairyland is America. It's, you know, an ancient name for America. And, you know, the netherworld, hell, Amontet, Hades, Patala. So like when I see a movie about that, I relate to it because I live here. I live in fairyland. So I think, oh, cool, you know, like it's a way for me to kind of honor and the sacredness of reality of the place I live. So it's not anything about escaping. And so I think there's a value in that, or you know, and at the very least, there's, I think, value in understanding the truth of this, and certainly dispelling the falsehoods about the meaning and purpose of ancient religion and mythology. And like ancient religion and mythology are basically the same thing, and they're basically the same thing as astrology for the most part. I mean, not all of ancient, you know, religion. There was also terrestrial gods like, you know, Osiris and Amentet Neferet, and like all the different gods of the underworld. You know, like in the ancient Egyptian Book of Two Ways, and in a lot of systems, like the underworld was separated into like 7 gates, and that's why they talk about the gates of hell, or the gates of heaven, the gates of hell. Like, it's plural gates because it's not just one gate. There's 7 different gates. So, and each gate corresponds to a section, basically, of the underworld, the Antipodes, America, like the Americas. So, of the 7 gates of hell, I live in the 3rd gate, I guess, because it seems that the 1st gate is like Greenland, and it's guarded by Baffin Island. And then the 2nd gate is, at least on the west coast, would be the Alaskan Peninsula, between the Alaskan Peninsula and Vancouver, and it's guarded by the Alaskan Peninsula, which is, you know, basically a deity, a god, one of the underworld guardians called the Sad Voice. And that's either because it kind of peters out at the end, or because its shape kind of looks similar to a mouth, and with like small islands looking like a sad voice coming out. So anyway, between that and Vancouver, that's the 2nd gate. And then the 3rd gate is between Vancouver, Vancouver Island and Baja California. So I'm in California, so that's the gate that I'm in. And our guardian, the guardian of our section, my section of hell, is Vancouver Island, which is called He of either like Damaging face or something, or damaged face. And I think it relates to the shape of Vancouver Island and possibly the way that it seems to be penetrating into the coastline of the mainland. So yeah, it's hard to know some of the names, some of the, most of the names, I think they relate to the topography, but sometimes it's hard to know the exact etymology. But again, like, so that's ancient religion, mythology, and for me, like, it makes me feel like more, it's not an escape from reality, like thinking about, these kind of zoomorphic deities that are really just, features of the land, like, my guardian, the guardian of my gateway is Vancouver Island. And actually, Vancouver Island is not depicted I haven't seen him actually depicted. It just shows where on the coast he is. But, a lot of the ones like Baja California is depicted as like a, in one thing it's depicted as like a serpent with a turtle shell on his head. And in another one, it's depicted as kind of bull-headed deity, I think, some kind of zoomorphic deity with horns. So it's like, I use this to relate even more to reality, to say like, or even, thinking of the place I live as Amentet Neferet, the goddess, or as Hel, who was also, shown as a goddess. They would refer to Hel, our queen. And, for me, it's like, I can relate to that because, it's like in South America, sometimes they say, they give offerings to the earth and they say Pachamama, or even people say Mother Earth, right? Mother Earth is not a way to escape reality. It's not imaginary, really. It's just, it's a true thing. Like, the earth in very many ways is our mother. It's not in the extremely literal way, but symbolically speaking, it plays the role of our mother. And similarly, to say like Hel, our queen, Hel, the goddess who is the Americas, is, this is a powerful, benevolent queen, you could say, and, sort of a mother to the people that live here and to the world. And so, it's like you can honor, a lot of the worship is kind of more just like honoring the sacredness of, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the universe. And so it's in no way incompatible with like science or logic. It's just a system of symbolism. And, I think that we're a poor people for having lost that language of symbolism. And I think we'll be richer if we can piece it back together. And I think we can, I'm sure there will always be things that we won't be able to piece back together from ancient times just because, so much has been lost. But I do think there's a lot that we can piece together, and especially if we stay at it and we work together over time, we can put a lot of the main components of the original edifice back into place. All right, so I think it's cutting me off now, but yeah, that's my spiel basically. I think that art and mythology, whatever, should go back to being something that further cements our relationship with reality instead of what it is now, which is kind of like an anti-reality rebellion. Um, you know, I mean, I guess there can be both. You know, there's no reason there can't be both, but I would like to at least bring back some of that that deep connection with nature, and instead of just the, you know, wanting to alter everything and wanting to, like, you know, everything to be supernatural, whatever. And just to understand like the beauty of symbolism, of the many layered symbolism of ancient religion. All right, thank you much and take care.